young Prince Alfonso lays dead. The female lead Ariadne stares at his lifeless corpse. She turns away and orders the knights to remove the body. Her fingers shake, so she intertwined them. She walks past corpses of fallen knights. She brushes off her dress and wipes the blood from her face. In the throne room surrounded by corpses is Caesar. She approaches him and glances at the bodies. She informs him that the crowned prince is dead. He laughs hysterically. He passionately holds her, and says he'll make her his wife. She hugs him ensued in his warmth. 9 years later she has remained by his side, and does the duties of the queen. However, that's a title she does not have. 8 years ago in a dining hall, noble women gossip about her. They spoke of Caesar finding a new wife. Although he has a fiancée, they don't think he will marry her, since she is an illegitimate child. However, Caesar is one himself. He was the cousin of the Prince Alfonso, so he is born of an unholy marriage. That makes him a mutt, not worthy of the throne. Ariadne grabs her by the hair. They can say whatever they want about her, but they cannot insult Caesar. Suddenly her face glows with happiness hearing Caesar's voice. He ignores her and walks towards the lady, and assisted her up. Ariadne's face grew pale. He turns to her, and says she had no right to treat a noble woman of the capital that way. He needs their support to covet the throne. The Countess Marquise is of more use to him than her. She can't be queen if she's an embarrassment. Only when she change can she reign by his side. That is what she has thrived to do. But even after 8 years, she remains his fiancée. In the bedroom they begin to play around. She believes she has to try harder to be his wife. As they romance he gives her news that her sister Isabella will be queen. She shoves him away. Isabella was the former wife of the crown prince. The king cannot marry someone that has lost their innocence. However, he claims she still is her card, which is obviously a lie, since she had a miscarriage. Caesar is furious. He pushes her away, saying she's so jealous, she would ruin her own sister's name. She grabs him and reminds him of all the promises he made. Without emotion, he bluntly states she is common, and is nothing like the noble lady Isabella. She comes to a conclusion that they've been conspiring from before Alfonso's death. From the very beginning Isabella was the only one for him. However, her father saw it fit to give him the lesser daughter. He was humiliated. What could he have possible lack? She falls to the ground, understanding that she was nothing more than a replacement. He states that she was not good enough to be a replacement. She betrayed her country. She cut off her wedding finger. She abandoned her prospects of marriage, all for his ambition. He averts her gaze and calls the guards, claiming she has gone insane from hysteria. She yells his name as she is taken to the Western Tower. In a forest she walks with Caesar. He sees lilies and says those lilies remind me of you, subservient and seem to only bloom for me. Sadly it was all a dream. Today will be his coronation day, that she had planned. It should have been her. By his side, a lilies strive in the forest but it will never be as cherished as a rose. She sees her sister and asks why she's here. She's yelled what is she's done with Caesar. Although Ariadne should be explaining the misdeeds she did to her husband, she has nothing to say about Alfonso. She laughs and says she was referring to Caesar. Ariadne is confused. She starts to praise herself like Escanor. Her name had been dragged through the mud. She's known as a widow and someone that gave birth to a stillborn child. That's why she's so enraged. But what about her husband Prince Alfonso, who treated her with love and kindness? She believes that is the way all men should treat her. If she was to give herself to every man that loved her she would become a harlot. She inquires if she had loved Caesar. Then why didn't she take his proposal? Instead she pushed them together. So why does she want him now? The reason is simple. As the time Caesar was a lowly count who was the son of a mistress. Now things have changed. He will be crowned king. It's a shame Alfonso had to die. But he couldn't make her the most noble woman in the land. His death is justified by his failure. Caesar has paid the price for her worth. Now he can receive his reward. She stands on her feet. Caesar meant everything to her. But Isabella does not love him. All she desires is status and power. She tells her that Caesar was the one that came begging. He flattered her saying she never left his heart. He thought of her even as he held Ariadne in his arms. Caesar had said her shoulders were broad like a man, her hair was black like a crow, and her melons remind him of a cow's udders. While her sister was perfect, she gives her a piece of advice. Men are ungrateful, and as a woman your main goal is to maximize your worth, to exchange your life for something valuable. She lowers her head in disbelief. Caesar may be going after her now, but in time he will get bored, and recalls the good times he had with Ariadne. It's a pity that her sister doesn't leave loose ends, so that's why she wants him to make it painless. As she breathes her last breath she thinks this is unjust. Why couldn't she have earned his love? It's not like she committed treason and then killed a lot of knights and poisoned the prince. Wait a minute, she did. And the cherry on top, she killed her own sister's husband. I'm sorry but I can't give her any support, but I did agree with what the psycho sister said. Comment below if you agree with her, or you just hate her. A voice asks, do you consider yourself capable of living by the golden rules? She says of course she's capable. She then wakes up in her younger body. She looks in the mirror and looks at herself. She sees a mole that she never had before. A grumpy maid enters and tells her to stop admiring herself like a noble. She is a lonely class servant like her mother. A maid burst through the door calling Ariadne. Someone has arrived from the castle, who have come to take her away. This is a day her father brought her back. Cardinal da Meyer, who is a man of the Lord. He had a woman, and had offspring as they were supposed to do in that era, but they were not allowed wives stated by the law, so he had a high-born mistress named Lucrezia, who acted as his real wife. Although his children are born of wedlock, they were treated as legitimate children. The middle child is Isabella, who is seen as the fairest woman in the capital, and the cardinal's pride and joy. However, the child born between the maid and cardinal, Ariadne, was an illegitimate child like the others, but due to her mother's low status, she was banished to a farm. She arrived at the cardinal's manor. She smiles and greets the cardinal. He says he's happy to see her. She's grown into a fine young woman. Despite the lack of formal education, she is grateful for the empty words. She said she will continue to learn as to not bring shame to the family. Lucrezia intervenes and says they expect nothing less. A woman's virtues doesn't come from learning alone, but knowing to take care of her family and parents when they're old. Her father places a good amount of importance in looking like a happy family, so she'll use that to her advantage. She thanks her for the insight and calls her lady. She's frightened. The cardinal says lady. She quickly states that she can call her mother. She smiles. Suddenly someone opens the door. She feels a shiver down her spine. Isabella welcome her. Ariadne used to look up to Isabella but she made her feel small. Isabella extends her hand. They shake each other's hand and smile radiantly. The cardinal says he's happy to see his family together again. As they leave, Lucrezia starts laying down the law. She leaves. Ariadne hasn't done anything yet. She's only getting started. The youngest sister says she's just a farm wench. She could never be her sister. In the past she would have stayed silent and endured childish tantrum, but now she knows how to handle it. She says she's pities her, because her parents loves her sister more than her. She gets upset and pushes her down the stairs. However, Ariadne dodges at the last moment, causing Isabella to fall. Their father comes to find the reason for the noise. He asks who caused this. Arabella quickly blames Ariadne. The cardinal schools her and Arabella smirks. Ariadne says Isabella fell while trying to help her. The two are shocked. She goes further and says Arabella was playing too rough and pushed her. She tries to deny it. Ariadne says she's not a liar and they should ask Isabella. She took a moment to answer and agree with Ariadne. She would never miss an opportunity to help a sibling to make herself look good. Arabella is punished. She has to stay in her room for 2 weeks. She swore that she didn't do it. For the sin of talking back, the time was increased to 3 weeks. The maids take Isabella away, while Arabella begs her father. He calls for his wife to start an argument. She thinks it'd be easier to get her revenge than she thought.